Gather round. It's time for your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group at Coldwell Banker Burnett. Listen closely as your coaches discuss the culture, the economy, and the political scene, and how it affects your home and your real estate investments. Real Estate Chalk Talk is where you learn the science of buying and selling real estate and the art of living in your home. Your education begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome to the program. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk, broadcasting from the legendary Rack Shack Barbecue Studio in Eagan, Minnesota. HittnerGroup.com, Hittner Group, all one word. HittnerGroup.com, 612-627-8000. That's 612-627-8000. Give us a ring-a-ling-a-ling. We'd be happy to help you with any of your real estate needs. All with the first consultation is no cost and absolutely no obligation. 612-627-8000. Good morning, kids.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. I just want to, I'm going to just, I was doing a little bit of a real estate roundup, a little update for myself yesterday and last night, and I just wanted to go over it with you, and I'm curious about your comments. It's just a quick update today on the real estate market as it comes back into balance. I should say as it continues to come into balance, as it still remains like a strong seller's market. But there is some significant changes taking place. Inventory levels have increased over 37% since the first of the year. And that's the strongest mid-year increase since 2017 when it was 31%. And that means more choice for buyers at this point in time than we have seen in the last 3 years, with just over 5,000 homes on the market right now in the 7-county metropolitan area. That's just over a 1 month's supply of inventory. The balance would be a 5 to 6 months supply, but the flow-through is slowing some now, with new pending sales at 1,200 units for this last week, which is 13% down from last year and significantly off like 24% from 2018-2017. Total closed sales through the end of May shows an 8% decline year over year, which indicates a slowing market, which is really a welcome sign to buyers looking to move up. As Junior reported last week, the entry-level home market remains blisteringly hot. And while that move-up property may have reached its level of equilibrium, I would say. Inflation, in fact, has truly impacted the market, taking dollars off the table that could be used for housing and burning them up at the grocery store and the gas station. And that, coupled with a 2% hike in interest rates, has taken some buyers really out of the market, or at least put them in a different price tier. And at the same time, it has given pause to the move-up families, which is really kind of a double whammy, because it has the double effect of, now, if I'm decided I'm not going to move up,
right,
now I've taken that entry-level home off the market.
Right.
It's not going to become available. And then of course, it reduces demand on that move-up property as a result. So reducing demand for that next level price level. On the new construction side, there's good news in that lumber prices have come down significantly, which is some relief to builders. But they are reporting around the country that model traffic is off like 30%. So they are kind of going, reconnoitering their plans for the second half of this year and next year. And I think that I'm thinking that by the end of this summer, we're going to see some incentives coming back into the market for new construction. You're going to see
there's some already.
Basement finishes, and closing costs being paid, maybe even some discounting going on, stuff like that.
We saw one right now that I forget the builder, or won't mention the builder, but they're doing like a buy down.
Yeah.
On the rate, so they're starting at 3.5, 4.5, 5.5 in year 3.
You have a crack at this house, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, 20 of you.
Mm-hmm.
The first one to call me back gets it, right?
Right.
So, new construction, I've had some personal private conversations with different builders around the metro just over the last 10 days, and they're off significantly and just builds booked, smaller semi-custom home builders. And, you mentioned, and kind of like we talked about before on the first-time home buyer market, those folks are they're like, well, we wanted to move up, and you talk about inventory increases. Majority of the inventory increases 350 to 500,
right,
and 500 to $1 million.
Right,
that's where we've seen the biggest increase in inventory, and that's where we had such a lack of inventory over the last couple of years. So what's happening now is we're seeing now price reductions in that level of inventory. You know, a house that was listed at $625 is now on the market at $599 or $575, which is probably where it should have been on the market to begin with. But those folks at above $350 or in that kind of $350,000 to $400,000 mark that wanted to move up because of how attractive interest rates were and how much equity they had in their home, they're now sitting back and saying, let's just see what happens.
Right.
And so they're not making that move. They're not putting the home on the market. The largest decreases in inventories are in that level.
The question
the 250 to 350 single family home, those are off 20%, whereas the increases on the other side with the higher price homes.
The question that I have is, I mean, I just see right now that we have a fractured market, in that there are segments of the market, as you've just laid out well, that are just fire engine red hot, right? I mean, you can't get enough in there. And there's demand for them. There'll be multiple offers in them, particularly a first-time homebuyer market. And I don't even want to say first-time homebuyer market. I want to say that price range, because we've got double demand there. You've got some of those homes are also under demand from empty nesters who are looking to downsize. So you've got two market segments going after that same Richfield Rambler. And then with that in mind, in the townhome market, we've seen great recovery in the townhome market, really nice recovery. But there's a definite lack of that one-level living experience that's available for these empty nesters, so they can get out of that big two-story or that split entry or whatever it is and transition sideways into that other house. There's just nothing available.
Such a challenge.
It's really tough. And if you look at the demographics where it's going, where, you know, what did we hear just the other day? You know, like most of the market is going to have gray hair in you know, a few years. Yesterday was at our G7 meeting, Calvin, where we have a gentleman in our group there who is building assisted living facilities, and he was laying out what the demographics were, what the numbers are coming in. It is like scary at how many people are going to be in that market, where it's most of the population, especially in Minnesota, most of the population is going to be in that neck of the woods. So
makes a massive heart attack look pretty favorable.
It really does when you start looking at some of the costs involved.
If I could just
kind of dovetail on the
kind of dovetail in, hope I die of a massive heart attack.
So, you know, the question is, you know, is there a solve? What is, and that's why we've got Chris Galler on the program today. Welcome to the show.
No pressure.
We want to know from an association standpoint what kind of counsel that you're will be giving to members to prepare for this market that's coming sooner rather than later. I mean, it's coming hard and fast. And in terms of the council to builders and all that stuff, was there 18,000 members? Is that right, or something? 22,000 members. Now, they're not all real estate agents.
No.
So what is that membership? Just before, as we go out to break, what does that membership breakdown look like in terms of realtors and others?
Well, we have 22,800 members.
Right.
So they're all real estate licensees.
Okay.
But there's probably 1,500 of those to 2,000 that aren't active at all. They're assistants, they're licensed assistants, and do a bit of work that way.
Okay.
We have a number of people that don't do very many transactions. They do one or two a year. It's always been a large percentage of the business.
Right.
What we're seeing, though, is the large producers are taking up larger and larger pieces of the marketplace. They've really figured it out. They've established their own business plans. They've set up teams and groups and have found ways to really leverage the way the market goes. And their knowledge and skills are being, you know, the market is rewarding them for that.
So then it's a matter of, and we'll get into it after the break. We have to go out right now because there's a number of lawsuits that are coming that's going to get into the mix and throw a monkey wrench into that thing, and then what the future of the association is in terms of combining, consolidation on a state level and a national level from that.
Yeah, with that, we'll head out to break then. This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. Log on to our website, hittnergroup.com, Hittner group.com, or give us a call, 612-627-8000. That number again is 612-627-8000, and we'll be right back.
Get that Rack Shack attack, Rack Shack barbecue. Yeah.
And now, we return to the purveyors of real estate knowledge, your Real Estate Chalk Talk.
Hey, welcome back to the program. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk, coming to you from the legendary Rack Shack Barbecue Studio here in Eagan, Minnesota. Hittnergroup.com is the website you want to go to, Hittner group.com, 612-627-8000. Write that down on the palm of your hand, 612-627-8000. Give us a ring-a-ling-a-ling if you got any questions about your home and what that valuation might be. We'd be happy to have a chat with you. No cost and absolutely no obligation. We've got Chris Gallagher in the studio. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Minnesota Association of Realtors. Before we go down the rabbit hole, I would like to know just what is the association's primary function and duty?
Sure. At the statewide level, so there's local associations across the state, and then there's the state and the national. Our focus is on advocacy. Large part of what we do is advocacy. Large part is risk reduction for brokers and members, which includes professional standards and the Code of Ethics and Code of Ethics enforcement, a legal hotline. There's a booklet for members, 300 pages long, with all the different laws and rules and regulations that they can access 24/7. Drafting the purchase agreements and making sure that you have access to purchase agreements in the marketplace. Continuing ed, that we have online continuing ed, and soon we'll be launching 24/7 online continuing ed, and then programs, conventions, legislative day, those kinds of things.
So then do the local associations then report to you, or how does that structure work?
No, it's a structure where each of the entities is separate, but we collaborate in order to make it, because we have the same member, but we collaborate so that our efforts aren't duplicative. So if you're Minneapolis or St. Paul, they do advocacy, but they do it at the city level and the county level. We do it at the state level and the regulatory level, and then the national does it at the national level, so with the federal government and their regulatory bodies.
I think that a lot of real estate agents, I know for sure, are confused about the need for a local association. They're just like, well, why isn't it just run by the state? Why do we have this duplication? Because every time you've got a association, you've got overhead, you've got offices, you've got staff, you've got all that stuff, and it just seems like it could just all be run from the state.
Yeah, I have to work with those folks, so I won't say I should put them out of business. That's the state association. They serve a valuable role. The two metro associations in Rochester own the RMLS, which has 93% membership in the state. So almost everybody uses that particular service, which runs separate from them, but they own that. They deliver other services at the local level so that members are closer. And members are generally closer. I can remember when it was Dakota County and Southern Twin Cities Association, it was a lot closer in those days. There has been consolidation in the state. We're down to 16 local associations, and way back in '85 when I got into business, I think we had 21. So it's slow. We're going to lose one this year up in Fergus Falls. They've decided to fold and merge with another association.
When you have the state advocacy side of things, talk about that a little bit with our state legislature, what that involves, and people going over and talking to the legislators and the senators and all that stuff. What are the hot topics that are going on right now?
Sure. Well, luckily we're done this year. We have we have 2 full-time lobbyists, and we have another person in political affairs, plus we work with another firm to help us to cover all of the different hearings in there. Our primary focuses this year were regulatory related, working a lot with the Builders Association to try and bring down the costs of putting new housing in the ground. We need more inventory. We have to figure out ways collaboratively to say we have to lower these costs somehow. It's too much to get units in the ground. Second, trying to close that home ownership gap in Minnesota, which we have closed it somewhat. We used to be the worst. Now we've moved up 5 spots at least, but it's a challenge. And we lobbied hard for a first-time home buyer, a down payment assistance program this year. We didn't get it. We were asking for $171 million to try and really make an effort to first-generation home buyers, which is anybody. People think, your target. It's anybody. And there's a lot of people that are first-generation home buyers, and we're trying to get people into that so that they can build wealth. We weren't successful. We passed a bill in the House, but we were unsuccessful in the Senate this year.
But I thought there were first-time homebuyer programs out there.
There's some first-time home buyers through the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency and some scattered programs, and that's actually where we started, was to look at those programs and say, is there some way to consolidate it? Because some of the folks, you need quite a bit of down payment nowadays, and a lot of the folks would go in and they would say, yeah, we have 15 loans that we're given this year, and we're doing them at $2,000 each, and they could get another $1,200 over here and $8,000 there, and then they'd finally find a house, and you know what that's like, trying to find a house.
Yeah.
And they'd finally get it, and then go back to those places, and they go, sorry, the money's gone.
Yeah.
Well, now you've upset a seller. You've got agents that have a lot of time in there, and their credibility now is on the line. And it was all because that entity didn't reserve the dollars. They just gave it first come, first serve. We didn't think that was a good way to do it. We thought that the program needed to be reformed. We needed to have all the dollars in one spot and make sure that the buyers are qualified so that homeowners didn't have to worry that they weren't going to qualify. We didn't want to have a whole bunch of additions to it. Some of the programs, you have to replace this, you have to replace that. Well, now the homeowner doesn't know if they're going to get it or not, and they look at 2 offers. One, down payment assistance, where there's all these potential problems, pitfalls, or cash. Well, that's an easy deal.
Yeah, right.
I'm going cash.
Right.
And
or even just traditional financing.
Or traditional
because
financing.
we lost so many deals due to bond loans this past year that we just you guys wouldn't accept the offer,
Wouldn't even
even
look
though
at
they're
them.
good offers.
Wouldn't even look at
Yeah,
it.
it was the
And-
first when you had 10 offers
Yeah.
on the table and there's a bond program there. That's the first one that gets swept into the trash
which,
can.
which isn't right, but that's reality.
Yeah.
It's reality, because you're working for your client, and your client
making
wants
sure
to be
that
able
you
to
have
make
the
that move.
highest likelihood to sell the house for the most money
There
in
you
a
go.
timely fashion. Those are the decisions being made on cash and conventional financing. Easy. If there was a program that was more cut and dried and funds reserved, pre-qualification, etc.
Right.
Now, are those dollars now that are like second mortgages that need to be paid back? Are they grants? Or
They
what?
live in the house 5 years, it doesn't have to be paid back.
Is that so? What
That's not very long.
we're trying
Yeah.
to get is permanent funding.
Trying to get permanent funding, but at least wanted to seed the program with dollars this year. And we worked with a bunch of nonprofits. We worked with private. We had the Better Business Bureau that was on. The Minnesota Business Partnership set up a whole DEI section, and they endorsed it and said this
What
is
was
a good
the roadblock
program.
then?
Roadblock was, they didn't come out with a tax bill, and they didn't want to spend their money on that. They said the
But we got
market's
an $8
already
billion surplus.
9.
$9 billion surplus, but yeah.
People always think that's because I've been lobbying, for a long period of time, and they always think that, well, when they have a lot of money, it should be really easy. It's just as hard when they have a lot of money as it is when they have no money.
Yeah.
So it's just a difficult atmosphere up there right now.
And to your point, from a first-time home buyer, I have a client that we're working with right now. He's 60 years old. He's never owned a house.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. We
He's
secured
never
a
owned a house.
transaction.
And he's he's been renting for years and years and years, and now the owner wants that house back, and he's got to go buy a house, and he says, I'm finally going to buy a house.
Sure.
60 years old. So
My grandparents are in the same situation. They had rented their entire lives and finally bought, after my grandfather had retired, they finally bought a house.
So that money, and he's in the same boat. I mean, he could, he's got his toys and all that stuff. He's been renting a house, so he's lived like he's owned a house. But he'll need some. I mean, if there was some assistance available, he certainly would take advantage of it. The question is how can we remove the stigma of a bond program?
Yeah.
From the purchase agreement, and a lot of that is the extra hoops that in some programs that need to be gone through. two appraisals sometimes, or inspections, additional inspections, and some of those kinds of
I
things.
heard there was some talk in the about in the forms removing that piece of it from the forms. Am I right?
We removed that piece for, it'll come out in August.
Okay.
You'll see
Okay.
that line was eliminated.
That
There were some
bond
other
line?
things they were
Yeah.
asking, but that particular one was okay. We're still a little concerned about the homeowner side of it, which is, does the homeowner understand how this financing is going to work and potential damage to a home buyer if indeed their assistance program doesn't work out.
Because that was added just a few years ago as well.
It was added because of problems a few years ago,
Well,
and now it's being eliminated.
Because
again.
an offer comes in, gets accepted, thinking it's a conventional mortgage, everything is good, and all of a sudden it's like all these hoops, and the seller is like, wait.
Right.
You know, nobody told me about that when
Right.
we're.
I got to move into my house. My house is ready as well.
Right.
Because a lot of people forget that. There's chains. These are chains.
Yeah.
And one kink in the chain screws up lots of
But
people's
that's the
lives.
importance of actually being qualified for,
for sure.
whatever financing option you're taking out, and the ramifications if you move forward with trying to purchase a home and you are in fact not fully qualified.
Right.
Right.
You know, and that's the reality of buying anything that's a large transaction like real estate.
And
right?
the collaborative work that you guys do in
Between
the
agents,
field
sure.
between agents when you're
Yeah, the
working with
communication
agents where
there.
you say, yeah, I've done deals with this person before.
Yeah.
And they've always closed well. Their staff is good. They assist. They keep me informed.
Yeah.
That I know their mortgage person is going to do a good job or whatever.
Lots of deals like that
Huge.
we've won over the last couple of years for sure. With that, we're going to head out to break here. We'll be right back with more Real Estate Chalk Talk. As always, HittnerGroup.com, 612-627-8000.
Rack Shack attack, Rack Shack barbecue. Yeah.
And now, we return to the purveyors of real estate knowledge, your Real Estate Chalk Talk.
Hey, welcome back to the program. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk, coming to you from the legendary Rack Shack Barbecue Studio in Eagan, Minnesota. RackShackToGo.com. RackShackToGo.com. Order up online, get the best food of your life. Pick it up at the restaurant or have it delivered right out to your house through one of the delivery services. HittnerGroup.com. That's where you order up the best house of your life. Live there and prosper. 612-627-8000. That's 612-627-8000. All right, Chris Galler's in the studio, Chief Executive Officer of the Minnesota Association of Realtors. There's huge lawsuits out there, all not just one either. I mean, a number of lawsuits out there. Everyone seems to be going after the industry as a, I don't know if they think it's a pot of gold out there or something, or what the situation is. But some of these lawsuits that are moving forward, if they succeed, and they've managed to move to the next level, a couple of them where they are big class action suits, billion-dollar suits. If they succeed, it will completely change the industry and how both the real estate agent and customers are served. Can you just outline a little bit for the listener of kind of what's going on with that and what the
suit's about.
what
and
the
then
suit's
what's-
about and what
yeah.
the objective is?
Sure. There's back in 2018 was the first, 2019, there was the first one filed, and that was a national suit, and it named the National Association of Realtors and 4 brokerages in it. And they said that it was unfair, basic language, it was unfair that a seller would have to pay the commission for a buyer in a real estate transaction, that the buyer is being represented by an agent, and in those types of transactions, the seller was actually paying somebody to work against them. That's what the thought was.
Oh, interesting.
And that's what the leverage of the case is.
I
Another one was filed in Missouri, and that one actually is the only one that's been authorized for class action, and that is a purely Missouri-based case, and they just did that. So these are cases that are going to take a long time. Keith Jr. will be around when they're settled. We won't be.
You know what's curious about that is the exact same argument can be made on the other side.
There's cases filed on
In
that side.
Why would the buyer have to pay the commission? Because at the end of the day, the buyer is the only one bringing money to the table. So the assumption is that cost to market the property is built into the sale price. And so now that cost has been shifted to the buyer because he's the one that's purchasing the house and putting up on the mortgage. The same exact
So really,
claim.
so really, the buyer is the one that's paying their own commission and
the
listing
sellers
agent's commission.
and the listing commission.
Yeah.
So I mean the same
in a
argument
sense, right?
can be made.
Fair.
There's a suit like that as well. So there's a suit from sellers saying it's not fair. There's a suit from buyers saying it's not fair. We'll see how those go because there's other places where there are different laws in different countries, not in Minnesota, not in the United States. But if you want to go to Australia or some of that, the difference is the ease by which this system works, and it's by far the most efficient in the marketplace, and it provides counsel to people, especially first-time home buyers, that wouldn't get it otherwise.
Which
so you're
is
basically
which is
leaving
what
them
the
on their own.
most the most important piece of it is that buyers and sellers are being represented
Right.
to the fullest, and that folks are knowledgeable, that are looking out for their best interests. And I agree
Right.
that it's an easy way of making sure that the folks that are doing that are being compensated for their time and effort to do that
Right.
for the consumer.
And it's very similar, and we've used this one forever, especially in Minnesota. Is you can hire me to find you a fish, and I can go out in a lake and try and find that fish. It's going to take forever. Or with the fee you're paying my company, I can hire other people, or at least entice them to say, if you bring in the fish, go on the lake, find the fish. And if I've got 100 or 22,000 people out there looking for a fish, the chances are I'm going to find a better fish, a bigger fish, and one that's ready to go versus me trying on my own. And I always use ice fishing because there's nothing more lonely or solitary than sitting out in the middle of ice over one hole, hoping that fish is going to come by.
Come on over here.
But if there's 1,000 people out on that ice with holes in, much more likely they're going to find one. And the other, on the buyer side, that gets very complicated is if you're a buyer and this particular system doesn't go forward, you're going to have to go from real estate company to real estate company to real estate company to find houses.
Which
And
is
right
like
now
going
we
back
make
in time.
There's
Going
no
back in time.
Reciprocity.
reciprocity.
no
then, right?
reciprocity. So it'd be basically like when you go to the store and have to buy something. Wouldn't it have been convenient if the agent that you met there at the sales store and you wanted something could say, yeah, we don't have it at this store, but I can show you one at the other store over there, which, is a magic thing.
Why
And
wouldn't they maintain that, and then just if the suit says, hey, buyers, I hire you to help me buy a home, and still have reciprocity.
Well, what will happen though is that the buyers who have a hard time getting enough money just to buy are going to say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'll just go directly to the listing agent.
Right.
And now they have no representation.
Right.
And that's, we went through, when was it, 92, when we went through the buyer representation lawsuits?
Yep.
It was just a huge deal then, and we fought so hard to get buyer representation, and now these lawsuits are coming down, and if they succeed, if they prevail, they'll destroy buyer representation.
Potentially. And what we're trying to do, and we do this. In Minnesota, we've been advanced since 92 when we did buyer representation contracts, dual agency contracts, all of the different things to make sure that all the consumers understood what was going on in the transaction. And these are just basically big law firms that have found people that have said, yeah, I'm willing to start that lawsuit and let's see where it goes. So
the other thing that confuses me is you look at, from a listing standpoint, an agent takes a listing to sell a house, agreement to sell a house, and they agree that the seller's going to pay a commission to market that property. Nobody says, oh, if you pay money to the newspaper out of that dollars, then how's that going to be?
You're in collusion with the newspaper.
Then you're in collusion with the newspaper. But if we pay another company, maybe a social media company, that's okay. But if we pay another real estate brokerage, somehow that's not okay.
Right.
When it's the same effort. The same effort is to reach a buyer and bring a successful closing or a buyer to the table that wants to buy that house. And I don't understand what difference it makes, or whose business it is, how that agent spends that resource or uses that.
And that's why NAR is confident that these are, they're big cases. They're going to cost lots of money to defend. But at the end of the day, the system works for consumers. It's very efficient. And you're right. the seller is giving their dollars to a company, and a company is deciding what is the best, most effective marketing way.
With
and
their
this is.
and with our documentation, it's with
Yeah.
their consent.
With their consent.
They're signing
100%.
off on allowing this to be done that
Yep.
way.
As long
So-
as you've got good realtors doing that piece, though. I mean, that's why, all your realtors, I mean, I wish there was half of those. And it was just the people that knew what they were doing, how they do the job, like the Hittner Group does, where they do it professionally. They actually go through documentation. People understand, but there's so many realtors that don't go through a thing. People don't know what they're getting into. And, so as long as the people are being educated, awesome,
That brings me to thank you, because that does bring me to my next question is, and that is, I'm curious about it seems like the most frequent complaints from the consumer
Absolutely.
is based on representation or lack of representation there, or bad representation. And we have companies now who are coming into the marketplace and expanding, across the world actually, but across the country, whose business model seems to be no supervision or very limited supervision, where you'll have one broker, one supervising broker covering an entire state with potentially, thousands of agents. I don't understand how that satisfies the statute of supervision, of proper and adequate supervision of a real estate transaction. I'm curious about the association, from an association standpoint, who is on the front line of fighting that battle. What's your position on that, and how is that being addressed?
Well, we modified it a few years ago as far as what the requirements were to be a broker. We're in the middle of strategic planning right now, and that's one of the elements that was brought out in our focus groups, was to relook at that and see what is the best qualifications for brokers in the marketplace. But there certainly are different business models coming on track right now. Different structures on how they view agent-broker relationship, skill sets that the individuals have. Like every business, there's lots of that going on. So we're watching it and certainly setting up a task force to study it and see what could potentially be proposed to the legislature through the Department of Commerce, who's the licensing entity in the state of Minnesota.
And from that, we got to go out to break right now, but when we come back, I just want to know what the Department of Commerce has to say about that, if you've had any communication with them, if they've got anything to say, or are you just kind of letting it roll on?
They haven't seen that as a huge problem in the
Interesting.
marketplace as far as complaints that they entertain that they've communicated with us.
All right, we got to go out to break, pay some bills right now. This is Your Real Estate Chalk Talk. We'll be right back after these messages.
Get that Rack Shack attack, Rack Shack barbecue. Ooh, 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 yeah.
But we're going to wrap.
Money in the bank.
Rates are good. Pretty exciting.
You know why? Right.
Free money. You understand what I'm saying?
Hey, welcome back to the program. This is Your Real Estate Chalk Talk, coming to you from the legendary Rack Shack Barbecue
You like that
Studio.
intro, don't
I
you?
like that.
Yeah, I like it too. All right, so Chris
You see
Galler's here.
Keith hopping,
Yeah.
big gold chain.
That's what I imagine every time.
You should see the video. It's all. It's
Yeah, the
outstanding.
video's awesome. I have one final question, then Kelvin's got to do his money stuff. You're on the board of directors of the Real Estate Data Protection Legal Association. What is that?
That was a group that we've been working with MLSs and title companies and everything else to try and retain the information for real estate transactions, to ensure that it's not being skimmed off by big data.
Okay.
And that's a huge concern for the industry
Yes,
long
absolutely.
term, is that there's lots of information that you provide in contracts and things. We have to work with third-party vendors to provide that, and we need to make sure that there's a good protection. So part of it is just making sure that there's a bankroll out there if entities want to take us on, that they know we're ready for the fight.
Okay. Back in the day, we used to put the Social Security number right on the contract. Remember that?
Yeah.
Put them in
Yeah.
the files, and then when you were done with them, you threw them in the trash.
The one-page purchase
Yeah,
agreement.
one
All the good old days.
The good old days.
Kelvin, what do you got?
What do we got? So, we got to change the intro. 'Cause
No way.
No, I'm just kidding. Rates are, prospectively, rates are great.
Yeah, they are great.
But they are higher than people anticipate or expect. This past week, one of the headlines was, again, that, we hit all-time highs again this past week on rates.
All-time high in gas price, too.
Yep. So
It's just odd.
It
You
is
drive
odd.
down the road, you look at that, and you're thinking,
$121 to fill up my car, you know, and I don't go to Costco. I need to just go to Costco, stand in line for 45 minutes.
It's not that bad.
Oh, it's lines down the road.
yep, bread lines.
Red lines.
Red lines.
So rates are up a little bit again. So I mean, in your mind, you just got to kind of settle in on that 5.5 number for 30-year fixed money. What we're finding, we're doing some investment properties yet in spite of everything, we're still doing. Had somebody called me yesterday, said, hey, I'm looking at buying this investment property. What should we do? And we looked at it, and I still could get them $599 with 1 point, discount. So it was about six. And so we participate well, and we've got phenomenal rates in comparison because we price out with all of our friends in the industry. I've been doing this 20 years, so we price out with our friends in the industry all the time, and we're doing really, really well.
That's one thing I think that we'll see that impact of the interest rate in terms of value. When you go into St. Paul or Minneapolis and you look at these duplex or fourplexes and duplexes that are priced to $600,000 for a typical duplex, or for a fourplex, you can't make the numbers work with a 25 or 30% down payment. So with the cost of money and where values are, quote, air quotes, values are at, those will come down. And with the rent control that's been put in place, depending on what the last contract is, will impact what the value of that building is.
That's what it should do.
Right.
I mean, a property like that's an income property. It's got to pay for itself. So that value is based on the income it will generate.
Because putting $600,000 cash in that quote investment, in the return that you're getting there, your cap rates, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
You have to, quite honestly, if you're doing that right now, you have to live there.
Yeah.
Right. You have to buy. You have to be a primary residence inside of that duplex, fourplex, whatever, so that I can use primary residence financing versus investment.
Right.
In this case, we looked at 20% down, 25% down. 20% down couldn't, it had to be, because we're doing the numbers, right, on what makes sense. It's 25% down. It's paying a point to get $599,
And you live there?
Not in this one. This is just a house they're doing.
I think that the two are separate issues, though, because you've got the interest rate is one thing, but then the value, like Keith is pointing out, that's where the real thing is. Because we were financing investment properties at 8% and 10%. I mean, it's not like interest rates have.
No, it's the value of the home is way.
It's the value.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what.
Yeah,
that's
it's on
what
you
it
guys'
is.
Prices
side
have
for
shot
sure,
up,
yeah.
and then interest
Yeah.
rates suddenly rose, and
Yeah.
it's the conundrum for right now.
Right.
Because an investor is a long-term play. So his goal is to secure the property, get a nice property that will cover itself today. And then over the course of 10 or 15 years, there will be a time when that property interest rates dip and you can refinance and get a little bit better position. But if the value is too high to start with, then that's a long waiting game, and you don't want to have to feed the property because now there's only so many of those that you can do. So it's got to at least cover itself.
Yeah.
So that you can go on and do the next one and the next one if you want to build.
But a lot of them you look at right now, if you put 25 or 30% down, you're still feeding them.
Yeah, see, that's just
And it just doesn't make
the
sense.
numbers
You're feeding
don't work.
or
Because
you're
with real estate, we know over time, real estate it
Right.
does increase in value.
Right.
The tenants are going to be paying down, so
Yeah.
you can fudge on that a little bit as a real estate investor. But when you're significantly feeding the property, it doesn't make sense.
And then when
that's
you've got
going
rent control in there,
rent
capping
control.
your ability to
no way.
generate the revenue, then that's just a
Yeah.
straight loser there. I mean,
Well,
So that's one of the situations. But what we are seeing right now, in our world, is I'm seeing my guys. We got 19 LOs that work for us, and we still originate as well, Jared and I. And what we're seeing is like we're winning deals, right? So we got FHA going, we got seller paid closing costs again. We got, like, people are accepting the offer. So everybody's kind of like high-fiving a little bit. But what I'm not noticing is new credit pulls, new applications coming in.
Interesting.
So it's like we're like whatever you had on the shelf in the store, we're selling it. But there's
Right.
no trucks coming in with inventory.
Right. The
right?
pipeline is looking a little
So
thin.
it's just like, that's why I'm, yesterday where I'm like, man, hey, like, call me, please. Like, no, call me. And
yeah,
I
we're
need-
creeping up on
you know what I
summer.
mean? It's kinda like,
the summer kind of like
nah,
that
I
little
don't-
summer dip that you see in July
Yeah.
every year.
You guys have an excuse every
I'm
month.
not making an
every
excuse.
month.
This is
Oh, it's Valentine's Day. Everybody's in love. We got, like, come on. It's not.
But for the past couple of years, there really hasn't been that
we
summer
just
dip.
plowed through that
Just
stuff.
went right
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
I think this year you're going to see a more traditional second trimester where we've got the dip, and what I don't know about you, but what I plan on doing is taking advantage of it, because it's been a number of years since we've had that. Take advantage of it. Enjoy some time.
Now it's just going to
Yeah,
make
that's
it worse
great.
for
That's
you.
great for my business.
Yeah.
Thanks, Keith. As much time as you want to take off, that'd
I'm
be great.
taking some
–
big time off. I'm going to sleep late and get up early. And
Jeez.
Well, what people don't realize is that yours is a lifestyle. And
Yeah.
it's 24/7.
It
And when
is.
a hot market like that, you just don't get a breathing point. It's not like I'm going to take off for a week and leave my clients in a lurch. And so, yeah, you guys
And
have
it's
had
very
two
much a
hard
momentum
years.
business, too. I mean, when
Yep.
you lose your momentum, it takes a long time
Yep.
to gear that thing back up again.
So that's kind of what. So in our world, that's kind of what we're seeing a little bit. Is just we're just not seeing the new apps as much. And there's an article that came out, 22-year lows on mortgage applications.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's some reality, but there's also just perspective on.
Well, there's the hype.
Locky, I was telling the story. My son's down in Miami working out with some NBA guys, overseas guys, D1 guys for basketball, and the trainer there he's just talking to these guys all the time, just saying, lock in, lock in. They hit a shot, lock in now, lock in. They miss a shot, you're good. Now lock in, lock in, and he's just like yelling, just and for us too, it's just like you gotta lock in on the basics. And one of our themes at the beginning of the year was what used to be common, what you just gotta get back to those basics, it's uncommon. Like, I don't call on a bunch of realtors anymore, but now I'm like, oh, I should talk to a couple more, and everybody in our industry just got to do those basics. I mean, what you're doing, and we talked about it last week a little bit, but you have clients that want a neighborhood, and you're literally mailing in and knocking on doors and talking, just trying to go do, we used to call it guerrilla marketing, right? Back in the day, saying, you just got to go do something to
you got to
generate
create.
your business.
You got to create business.
So you're
Right.
creating business, and I just respect the heck out of that.
Yeah, I do too. Friday flyers, we used to call it. We would go every Friday in a neighborhood, and we'd have flyers and junk,
Yep.
right? And hang it on the door,
Yeah.
knock on the door, boom, 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 and just leave. And maybe someone would answer the door. If you did, you go back and talk to them. Otherwise, you just go on to the next door, hang it on there, boom, 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 and walk out.
That's great.
People
Open houses.
come out. What are
He's
you
only-
doing? What are you doing?
He was only shot at twice.
Right,
And
yeah.
that's great. But it's the same market. Maybe you do that instead
Yeah.
of taking Fridays off,
Yeah, could do that.
Maybe could go after it a little bit. But anyway, we continue to love having the conversations. It's more important now than ever because there
Sure.
are ways to make sure that we're
So
in a good
you're saying
financial
you're going to
position.
work past Wednesday now from now on?
I'm going all the way to
To Thursday?
Friday
To
after.
Friday morning?
Yep, for sure.
Super.
I'm always working. So 651-231-2500. We always answer the call. So, and please call because I wanted to see if my phone works.
So, are you seeing any buy down? Are people buying the rate down or not really?
It's too expensive, and quite
Yeah.
honestly, we had Barry Habib on, and we really anticipate Q1 end of this year going into next year. We're going to see a little reduction in rates as the country goes into recession. Good news, everyone.
Good news. Well, that's what they wanted.
It is exactly what they want.
Yeah.
So, what does that mean? Like fours again?
Probably low fours, high threes, low fours.
Really?
Which is a great spot.
You
to
got
be.
that? We're saving
You
that.
save that. Got
Yeah,
it.
Calvin's been wrong for about 12 years, so
Just
we'll
12.
we'll see how it goes. Thanks for coming in, Chris.
No problem.
We appreciate
Glad to
it.
be here.
Yep. All right, that's Real Estate Chalk Talk. Log on to that website, hittnergroup.com, HITTNER group.com. Call us at 612-627-8000. We are the Hittner Group. Remember to call Calvin 651-231-2500 if you want to buy a house.
You want
No refis. That's it for this week, guys. We'll see you next week.
That's good stuff.